All right. Welcome, everybody, to the December 13th, 2023 City of Edina Planning Commission meeting. On behalf of the rest of the commission, we're grateful you're here tonight, whether it's in person or tuning in remotely. I say it every time, but your curiosity, participation, and feedback is vital to this process as we navigate change here together in Edina, specifically in regards to how we want to use our land. So tonight, unlike most meetings, we do not have any public hearings. Usually when we have those, we have a variety of methods for the public to engage through the Better Together Edina engagement website, but for tonight we do not. And with that, we'll just get right into the meeting. I'll call it to order. Do a roll call.
Commissioner Felt.
Here.
Commissioner Miranda. Commissioner Padilla.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Day.
Here.
Commissioner Strauss.
Here.
Commissioner Bornstein.
Here.
Chair Bennett.
Here. All right, next we have the approval of tonight's meeting agenda. Welcome a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So moved. Next, we have the approval of the prior meeting minutes from November 15th. Also, if there's a motion to approve or any proposed changes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. So moved. Okay, now we have the community comment period of the meeting, and this is your opportunity for any resident who is here in person that would like to speak about a matter that's not on tonight's agenda. You have 3 minutes to come up to the podium, state your full name, address, and watch the lights. When it turns red, your time's up. Is anyone here for community comment? Seeing none, we will move on. Wow, we're flying tonight. All right, this is good. So we just skipped all the public hearings that we don't have, so this is going to go quicker than most meetings. But similar to a public hearing, just kind of give you a rundown on what to expect for the reports and recommendations. So we're going to start with a sketch plan review of 7300 Metro Boulevard. City staff provides a report and a presentation based off of that. And giving that presentation will be Carrie Teague, and then we'll open it up to the applicant to provide a presentation or answer any questions that we might have. And then the Planning Commission will give non-binding feedback to the applicant team. And just to be fully transparent, my wife works for the applicant team, so I have to abstain from engaging in this one, so I'll just guide it through, but look to you guys for comments. Thanks, Carrie.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. So this property is located on Metro Boulevard. It's just west of Highway 100, north of Edina Industrial Boulevard. Property is guided in our comprehensive plan for office uses, the light purple. It is zoned Planned Office District 2. The site exists. This is a look at the site today. It's a little over 5 acres. It contains this 6-story office building. It's about 110,000 square feet. The proposal is to build a 6,000 square foot dental office in the parking lot here in the corner. So here's a look at an existing survey of the site. It's all surface parking. There's no underground parking with this building. So the proposed dental office would be down in this southeast corner. So here's a look at the proposed site plan. Note that there is a parking field in the front of the building. That's one condition that we've talked about in the past here. We're wanting to pull buildings up to the street. I'll point out some language from the comprehensive plan. That's one of the goals, is to hide parking or provide parking underneath. So that's kind of the focus of the sketch plan this evening. That's really the issue that staff had. They did provide a rendering of what that might look like if they did pull it up to the street. The main concern is they'd like to provide parking that's convenient and safe for their patients. So in having a separate field here, they can walk into the front of the building. Concern being, if they were to park in the rear, they would have to negotiate, or even in the side here, negotiate that drive aisle. So that's some of the reasoning behind the proposal. Here's a look at what the building might look like. They are suggesting that the main entrance would meet our 20-foot first floor height requirement, but would be seeking variances potentially for the rest of the facility. So a formal application would require a site plan review and then that potential first floor building height. I typically don't show this for site plan reviews and variances, but because we've had so many projects lately where we have a lot of discretion, where we're looking at a zoning change or a rezoning or a comprehensive plan amendment, we have a lot of discretion. With this one, site plan review is in the red. We really don't have much discretion. We have a little discretion with variances. So this is one we just simply don't have a lot of discretion. So some of the language from the comprehensive plan I mentioned, we're wanting to locate buildings to visually define corners and screen parking lots. Again, locate the vehicle parking at the rear to minimize visual impacts from the street. Some other issues with our bike and pedestrian plan. We do want to have a pedestrian sidewalk along Metro Boulevard on the site. I'll show you the pedestrian plan here in a minute. In terms of floor area ratio, they would meet our code requirements. Really, all other building or zoning ordinance requirements are met here, with the exception of that first floor building height. A traffic and parking study would also be done. So here's the site here. The red line, this indicates a pedestrian desire for a pedestrian walkway along Metro here. So as part of this application, we'd like to see, it's really the beginning of that sidewalk within the boulevard here. So with that, I will stop and answer any questions you might have. And as you mentioned, the applicant here is for a full presentation as well.
Thank you, Carrie. Fellow commissioners, any questions for Carrie? Yeah, Jerry.
Director Teague, the parking, it's a desire but through the comp plan, or it's a requirement? I mean, what's the...
Yeah, it's not a requirement. So yeah, if they were to come in with an application that had the parking in the front, really the only thing we are reviewing is the first floor building height and whether those variances are appropriate. So we have not amended our code to require parking in the rear. It's just a stated desire in the comprehensive plan. But we wanted to talk about the overall site plan before they submitted a formal application.
And then, so Metro Boulevard is on the east boundary line. What's the road then? Is that Ohms, or on the other side that would be the west?
Well, let's see, where is Ohms? Yeah, so here's our parcel here. Is that Ohms? It,
Okay.
up in here.
This is above the P for Public Works,
Okay.
and then it goes under the creek.
That's all. Thank you, Carrie.
Others?
Quick
Hi, Commissioner
question.
Felton, yeah.
Metro Boulevard, is that owned by the state? Is part of Highway 100, or is
I
it?
don't believe it's a state road. It might be a county. I can look
Oh,
that up.
it's same question, if it's a county.
Possibly.
So
You don't think so?
it's probably a state aid road, but not a state-owned road.
I can look it up.
Commissioner Smith.
Thanks, Director Teague. If you could go back to the image again, showing this one. So in the building to the north, what's facing Metro Boulevard is like a grassy area and any parking at the side.
Correct.
Yep. And what we're saying is that that's maybe like an old design, and we're trying to get away from that, where we want the buildings to be closer to the street. So that grassy spot right next to Metro Boulevard, ideally we wouldn't want to see that, or is that okay? For the north building, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to compare the new building to what's already there.
Yeah. So this, in a way, is accomplishing what we're after, not having parking in front of the building.
Gotcha.
Granted, it's on both sides, but.
And with this particular new proposed building, the lot, could that configuration be any different on this lot? Like, do you just buy a square footage on the lot, or could you shift it around within that space? I don't know if you know.
You could shift it around.
Okay. And the safety concern is that if the parking is in the front, closest to Metro Boulevard, because folks would come in, they would park, and then just walk around the building to the front.
Correct. This would be the front of the building, where they wouldn't have to negotiate the drive aisles.
Okay.
Walk all the way around the building to the front.
So it's possible that we could purchase, I guess, more parking from this image, the left side of the building. So there's no parking in the front. Or we could purchase more property on the north side of that building, and move the building closer to Metro Boulevard, essentially, because we're just purchasing space on the lot, not dedicated
Correct.
space that's assigned.
Between the two uses, they're code compliant. They have enough parking. You can kind of see from the aerial, there's plenty of extra spaces there. So it's just how do you configure the building?
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Miranda.
So there isn't going to be a subdivision of this property, right? This is just a new building on a part of the property?
Correct. There would be a potential, they could split it off. Additional side yard setbacks may come into play if that were, but as indicated, they've not a subdivision at this time.
Okay. And so the Southdale guidelines recommend the parking behind the building or under the building. It also started wasn't that where the 20-foot first story came from? But that was added to ordinances, but the parking was not.
Correct.
Just to clarify. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Strauss.
Our infrastructure issues at play here. I know we've had discussions with capacities for sanitary and storm.
There's not an issue with the issue that we have in regards to capacity is if we were to do a large multi-residential building, there's not the sewer capacity for that. But with a medical building like this, should be no problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, and now we'll turn it over to the applicant team. If you have a presentation, I know we have DJR, Hempel, and Edina Endodontics here. Just introduce yourself, where you're from.
Hi, I'm Ben Krisnak with Hempel Real Estate, the applicant.
Hi, I'm Chris Whitehouse, 113 Mississippi Lane, Champlin. I am the architect on the project. And to answer, I wanted to show this document to kind of, while we understand the urban design principle of wanting to draw the building towards the street, we feel that in this neighborhood, what we're doing makes the most sense for this use and for this client. As you can kind of see, this is roughly where the project would be. It might be a stall or two here. But as you can see, the building to the south also has a field of parking between it and Metro Boulevard. And we would be more than amenable to provide a connection to future sidewalk. There's no current sidewalk here. That's why we didn't show one in our documentation, but we'd be very open to that. But just having the parking here, there was discussion of can you move the building on the site? Well, obviously, we'd love to have the prominence of Highway 100 and Metro Boulevard. We want it to be on this part of the site. Another requirement that we're working with is a requirement of glazing and glass being on the front. I believe it's at 60%, 70% of all of the glass on the building needs to be on this facade here. So if we were to say flip the building, then all of a sudden that would be the back side of the building where we want to have more of the back of house use, more of the treatment rooms and such. So it just makes so much sense for our entry and the front face, the lobby, the waiting area to be on this side, especially when we're talking about that being where we're proposing to pop up the building 20 feet. You know, that should be here, so you get all your glass, like the image that we showed earlier. Let's see. I think Carrie had that. You have that image. There it is. So if you're doing this, this obviously would be the front public face, and that's Metro Boulevard side. And I will let Dr. Geisler talk more about the safety concerns that he has. You know, it is actually a big deal to him and his patients to walk from here to there or to cross this. You know, it was kind of hard to see on the black and white image before, but this is the drive aisle. This is one of the main drive aisles for these office buildings, as you can see, not just this one, but here. And so if we put our building right up to here, as you know, might be being proposed, then all of a sudden the closest parking is across a drive aisle. It's across traffic. And that is, and Dr. Geisler will expand upon why that is far from desirable for him. So we understand the ask, but we feel given this neighborhood and given the use, we think putting some parking between us and Metro Boulevard makes sense for this site and our use.
Sure. Yeah, just to expand on that, right now it is parking today, so you are seeing parking as you drive down the street, and so this helps accomplish the goal of helping to start to screen that parking area. And I think the 12 stalls we want to put in front of the building, that's kind of the bare minimum parking that we need for, that we think will adequately service the patients. The employees will still park in the back, and so they'll have a rear entrance for that. And I think that kind of accomplishes what we want to say. But yeah, we want to thank you for, hearing our presentation. And Dr. Geisler will say a few things, but obviously we're here for your feedback too, before we go and spend a bunch of money designing a building. So we appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Todd Geisler. I live at 6421 Biscayne Boulevard, and my office, Edina Endodontics, is at 50th in France. And I've been a resident and business owner for a combined total of about 25 plus years. So as an endodontist, so it's not just a dental office, I'm a root canal specialist. So I'm a bit out of my element when it comes to city planning, but I think I've learned the dynamics of our city, and so I can only speak to what I think would best serve our community and our patients. So my practice at Edina Endodontics is at the point where it's a necessity to expand. We have significant challenges at the location, including severe lack of square footage, inadequate parking, accessibility issues, and safety concerns. And particularly if you look at 50th in France, that south side multi-level parking area. So we see over 3,000 patients a year, and about 1/3 of those are patients that are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so our biggest complaint by far from our patients is navigating this multi-level busy parking structure, and then the traffic congestion at 50th in France is is also an issue for them. So the decision was to expand Edina endodontics in response to all these issues. The new project here is really exciting because we can have lots of parking, whether it be right next to the building, but also across from the building. But there is a challenge there. And so I'm not only doing the expansion to expand the business, but a commitment to really serve the community better and their endodontic needs, because we're going to be putting in 3 times the number of operatories, and we'll be hiring 2 additional endodontists, so which is great. But it needs to be functional, accessible, and safe. And the proposed changes to our initial plan will force, as we're seeing here, especially our elderly patients to cross kind of a busy drive thoroughfare here. And so, we feel like that is going to be even worse, like in the icy winter months. A lot of my patients come in with walkers or canes or wheelchairs, and navigating that the thoroughfare there can be very difficult. So I kind of look at the new plan as a way of kind of protecting the area and kind of making it like a cul-de-sac, like we do in our neighborhoods, where we can protect people from a busy traffic zone. So I think we want to prioritize their safety, especially these older folks. And I think a small amount of parking in the front of the building is still aesthetic, and it accomplishes the goal of keeping these folks safe. So I deeply value this community. I want to stay in Edina, hence Edina Endodontics. But the success of this project does depend on the practicality and the safety. So I'm here to appeal to you not only as a business owner, but as a resident. And I look forward to collaborating with the commission to find a solution that best serves the population. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation, everyone. Turn it to fellow commissioners. Commissioner Padilla.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. And thanks for the information about the current location. I am interested in learning more about your business so I can better understand what a new location might look like. So will you keep the current location and this will be a second one, or you're going to move entirely?
Well, initially I'm still in a lease for 18 months. Eventually I plan to move. There is the possibility with additional endodontists that I may potentially keep the location, but the goal is to fully move to the new location.
Okay, and how and why did you choose this particular area?
It's one of the, at least as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the only places to build new construction, at least that I had seen, and it's within Edina proper, and it's an up-and-coming area, and I think there's a number of my referrers now that have built offices in this same area.
Did you look at all in the buildings? I imagine there's space in all of these neighboring buildings. Did you consider that at all?
I did consider it, and it looked at some things, but most of the things didn't would require quite a bit of remodel, and in spending that much money, I really needed it to be something bespoke for my practice.
And is OCC still the manager there? Do they manage all those properties?
Yeah, OCC stands for One Corporate Center, and we own One Corporate Center 1, 2, and 3, and we're Hempel Real Estate, the managers of those.
Okay. So I guess your intention is to build a this is going to be a small Class A medical building?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, those are my questions, so thank you. That helps me.
Commissioner Strauss?
This is probably best handled by maybe the architect, or it's just regarding the parking, for the larger parking field. Is that also accessible? I mean, available to this property? I mean, it's not. You don't need just to park on your own lot there.
Right, yeah, there'll be a cross easement for parking.
Okay,
Parcels.
but I understand that entry lane. I can imagine how people are traveling through there. I mean, I can just see it. So, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Felt?
So I'm assuming this building is right to the setback, 20-foot setback, correct?
No.
On the south side,
Oh,
on the south side. And it's a double-loaded corridor. And
are you talking about the interior? Is
Yeah.
it double loaded?
Yeah.
Most likely, yeah, there would be operatories on the glass.
On both sides.
Okay. One of my first thoughts was, is there a way to kind of have drop off on the front side or on the north side? But it seems kind of tight north to south. It doesn't allow a lot of parking, but, a little bit of parking up there. So it seems like the parking's either on the west side of it or the east side of it?
Yeah, as we were talking about, one of the other conditions of zoning is that the front, which would be considered the front because Metro is here, this is where you have to have so much of your glass and so many of, put your materials. So that's where we want to put our best face forward. And that's where we want to put our big wow space, our 20-foot space, mostly glass. And that's where you come in, and that's where the waiting room is. Dr. Geisler has a specific way that he would prefer to lay out the building. Maybe he'll want to talk about that to answer your question. But it just, for other reasons other than parking, the prominent face wants to be here. We need other things like a trash enclosure. We wouldn't want to flip the building and have the trash enclosure on the Highway 100 Metro Boulevard side. So while we certainly, like I said, we understand the principle about pulling buildings forward, but this is not a street. My office is in North Loop, Minneapolis, where that's how you want everything to be. As we've been showing this image, this is not that right now. And we are moving forward to Metro more than our neighbor to the north, more than our neighbors to the south. And we will make any connection you ask us to make to a future sidewalk. We have no problem doing that. So I don't know if you want to talk more about the layout, why you wouldn't want to split the layout or the entry.
We like to have an entrance and an exit that kind of flows all the way around from our reception office back to our business desk and financial arrangements, where we don't want those to be in the public space. And currently, my business right now, we have to talk finances in front of the whole lobby, and it's less than ideal. And so by setting the flow in a certain way, we can ensure that conversation is private. And it works well. As we bring patients in, they have their 3D x-ray, they go to their operatories. This centrally located sterile is really great for both sides. And as they exit past our financial office and in a private area where we can speak about finances. So that's the idea.
This, the image you have up here is very helpful to kind of imagine it in that space. And it does add additional building that faces the street. Right now it's just parking. So I do appreciate this, dividing the parking around this and this kind of taking up some of that space and adding some more building frontage along Metro Boulevard. And that was one of the questions about, it would be difficult to move this driveway. I don't think it's possible necessarily, because it would just push the issue to the north side of those offices. But one of the things that our comprehensive plan encourages are boulevard-style sidewalks. So whatever we can do to kind of increase, and you said you're willing to kind of connect there, but give a little bit of space. I mean, I know it's just a small area, but whenever we can allow bicycles and pedestrians to kind of be off the street and as best they could kind of interact with each other, keep us safe would be helpful. So I do appreciate your willingness to kind of connect to a sidewalk there, even if it's probably more of a driving space. But I do see that this helps the street frontage more than what we've got now.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. So I think for a 6,000 square foot property, you would require, is it 20 parking spots that you would need?
It's 24.
24 parking spots. And so in this proposal, there's some parking, I think, right closest to Metro Boulevard, and then I think there might be some parking in the back of the building as well. I was trying to count the numbers. How much spots do you have, like, closest to Metro Boulevard? I don't think you could tell from this, but I think there was another image.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, yep.
Right now, we're showing 2 handicap and then an unloading stall here, and then 4 more. So you would have 6 immediately adjacent to a doorway, not having to cross any drive aisle. Even this, calling this a drive aisle is a bit of a stretch because it would just be people very slowly turning. But it looks like 6 plus 6. So I think you mentioned 12 before. So, or is that 7 there? No, 6 and 6. So 12 there. So approximately half of what might be required would be, for people that it's very important to just come right in and right out. The nice thing about having our large 20-foot high space here too would be we could have a door here and a door here for people that might be coming from here. We could have a door facing there and we could have a door facing here right in this upper corner. It just, the building just really lays out very well the way we have it here.
Gotcha. And in the back of the building, I see the dashed line. I think that indicates the property line, maybe?
I think it's just the work area.
The work area?
The civil engineer put. That's kind of the area that would be impacted, yes.
And so could you possibly have, half of those spots maybe put to the, I guess that's the west side of the building instead of on the east side? Or...
Well, you're asking take these and put these over here?
Yeah.
You'd be gaining 18 feet because you would still need this drive lane width in order to access these. And so for gaining 18 feet, you'd still have parking between Metro and the building. And it would, instead of being an efficient double-loaded parking layout like is the most efficient and effective, you'd cut that in half and you'd be limiting it to 6 vehicles that could park the way that Dr. Geisler would really like his patients that would really need to use those spaces. It would be limiting it.
Yeah, and it would really be 4 because 2 of them are already handicapped, right? So,
Handicap.
and the handicap have to be there for accessibility reasons. You can't move them.
And in terms of the business operation, I think you were going through the flow, which I'm a big fan of flow. So at any given time, I'm guessing there's also employees in here and patients, and I'm assuming that patients have to make appointments, they show up at a certain time. So when you think about the flow of patients and how many patients would be there at any given time, does that align to the number of patient parking spaces that you would need?
Yeah, at any given time, each endodontist would have between 3 and 6 patients at one given hour block. So, and we expect to have 4 endodontists. And so 4 endodontists times 6 per hour. So it's, patients are coming and going, but it is a busy practice. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yep. This might be a side note, but I think you were mentioning that you do root canals, right?
Yes.
And so I'm guessing a lot of patients are under anesthesia, and I don't know if they have to rest up before they could leave.
Yeah. So we have a certain percentage of patients that I see that I do surgery on, and so we do wheel them out in a wheelchair to their car. So although I don't do IV sedation, we do anxiolysis where they've taken a benzodiazepine and they're very much out of it. They have to be driven home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And the reason why I bring it up is because patients might be walking in, but then they have to be wheeled out.
Correct.
And so it's folks who just can't navigate cars that easily, right? Safety, as you were saying, is kind of really important for that reason. So you probably answered this to some degree already, but I just wanted to get some clarity. But are you buying space here, leasing the space, and do you have free range to decide where to put your building anywhere in this entire lot, or do you just have to pick this one spot?
Yeah, Dr. Geisler is buying a portion of the lot, and we'll want to separately plat that. But it's a cooperative arrangement. So, as we've owned the office building to the north, the 6-story, for about 17 years now. So we got a pretty good handle how that operates, and the parking that's required and traffic flow. And so we feel comfortable with where this is placed on the site.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Mr. Miranda.
Hello. So thank you for your presentation. I'd love for your business to expand in Edina, and I think this is the perfect location for it. We have districts like this within the city where we encourage commercial development, and this is the location's great. That's really good. But our job is to plan for the future, not to plan for today. And so even though our recommendations for having parking in the back seem odd and out of place with the character of the neighborhood, if you call it that, we're looking to, we spent years, the commission, the city, other commissions, planning for what Edina is going to look like in the future. And so that's our concern. Okay, so your concern is very immediate. I understand that. But our concern is more global. It's looking at things in a larger time frame. We're planning 30, 50 years out. So a lot of our guidance is, especially on large parcels like this, is based on the assumption that the entire parcel gets redeveloped at the same time. And clearly that's not happening here, right? So it's not even like a contiguous portion. Well, it's contiguous, but it's not even the entire width of the property or the entire height of the property. And so this comes across as very piecemeal. And so it's hard for me to really get a good idea of, what's best for this when we don't know what's going to happen, in the 3 parking lanes to the west of this, right? So, if you redevelop this, then how do you have another building, I presume over time the entire property is going to get redeveloped. And so, how are people going to get behind this building? You know, how are they going to see another building or another business behind this building? It just makes it very hard to plan. And so, I mean, would we want, you know, a dedicated drive aisle to the side of this, for example? Or even a walkway if, you know, the idea is to have like sort of a street that goes along the south side there. So I'm having a really hard time, you know, figuring out what's best here. But if we just take this and apply our current policies and ordinances to this, then the idea is that we don't want the parking in front because, I mean, in general, with a larger development, you would have a parking structure where you would just walk, you know, across into the building, or underneath where you just have an elevator going up into the building. So surface parking usually doesn't come up in our discussions on large properties like this. So, but I will say that I've been on the commission for 5 years, and within the first 6 months of joining, within the first 2 months of joining, we had a presentation for a property on France Avenue, which was a house that was used as a commercial building and then torn down and redeveloped as another commercial building. And on France Avenue, we have the same policies where we want the building up against the sidewalk. But what happened there was that the building next door to it was redeveloped with parking in front of it as a exception. And what happened with the building the first building that I talked about parking on was that the building next to it became the what's we're looking for, the precedent. And so my fear is that if the parking is in front of this building, it's going to set a precedent for the block, if not the neighborhood. And I think that would be a very bad precedent to set. So, you know, there have been other discussions about, you know, how the building could be restructured or somehow so that people, your patients, could come in from the back. And I don't know if double loaded meant there was a hallway down the center or something. Is that what you're referring to, whatever? So, I mean, you know, and again, with larger buildings, we want, and talking about the Southdale district, we talk about the buildings not really having a front, right? So that every side of the building has glass and, you know, is pleasant to walk by and that sort of thing. So this seems very much like a very old school sort of building design, very sort of, you know, 1970s suburban, and it's not really fitting in at all to what we want to do within the city nowadays. So, I mean, it's weird that it's, I don't know, semi-ironic that you're moving from 50th and France to here because you kind of want to get away from what the city is aiming to do in the future. So the way 50th and France looks now is, you know, where you've got buildings up against the street, is the whole Southdale area plan. That entire plan for that entire quadrant of the city is based upon something that looks very much like 50th and France. And so moving to another part of the city to try to get away from that when our entire policies and plans are based around that, keeping that sort of feel, then this feels like it goes very much against that. So I know we don't have a lot of say in what we can do here, but I would encourage you to try to find some other way, whether you just have a hallway down the center and you have maybe the most glass on the front, but you have a welcoming entrance on the back too, that, and maybe, you know, the reception in the middle or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an architect, but, you know, is there some way of making this so that you can both solve your problems and aim for the goals that the city is trying to do to make this a better city? You know, we want Edina to be the best city in Minnesota, right? So we have plans for that, and there, you know, it's years of research, years of resident input to come up with those plans. So I would just encourage you very much to try to meet those plans, because it's not just a, you know, oh, we just feel like it sort of thing. There's years of research into it. You know, we have a warming planet. We have a huge climate problem right now. You know, we have record-setting heat. You know, we have summers where the sky is orange. You know, that's not going to get better if we keep, you know, promoting the use of cars over any other method of getting around. So I don't know, do you have children? Do you have grandchildren? I think we want to make a better world, and our ordinances and our policies are geared towards that. So, let's see. Yeah, okay, I pretty much covered everything. So that's what I would recommend. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Day.
I guess I really am going to echo a lot of what Commissioner Miranda just said. I mean, in a little bit different way. As I look at this, it is difficult for us to lay this out because of the way that this is kind of sitting in a parking lot ocean here. To me, the first thing I saw when I saw this sketch plan was like, you've come this far, why not go that little bit extra, right? You hit on the precedent solving, like the word that came to my mind was momentum, and it generates the wrong momentum to have that parking lot there in between, a boulevard that we'd like to have and potentially in the future develop. As I think about this area, since I live close by and bike over 9 Mile Creek, just to the north, pretty frequently, it'd be really nice if in the future, Metro Boulevard had more of a parking lot, had more of a promenade there, right? More of a sidewalk and bike lane and stuff like that. And that's more inviting and more pedestrian friendly if the building, to me, is closer than to Metro Boulevard, and then there's not sidewalks segregating buildings from the road. Also, the way that sidewalk is laid out now, I know you'd want to connect to that, but I think it's much easier to do rather than have a sidewalk in the middle of a parking lot that will connect to a sidewalk in the future, right? You just you set the starting foundation for how that sidewalk and how that boulevard would look, and people would want to build and connect along that. Again, mostly what you had already said, but I guess couple other things. The green space, right? I know there's not a lot of detail here. You have a lot of grass, some trees, varied vegetation stuff. I'm sure you're planning on doing a lot of that, making it look as nice as possible, especially since we have this ocean of parking, ocean of concrete there. It would be nice to have that built up as much as possible. I'm sure it'd be more inviting to your patients. Yeah, I mean, the parking aspect, the safety aspect, if the building is shifted closer to Metro, I mean, really, people would just park more on the west side of the building and still wouldn't have to cross that drive aisle, right? You've eliminated parking in that area, but people could still park to the west. So, like I said, we don't have a lot of control over here. It's really, again, just suggestions and stuff. But I think as what our objective is to have, these boulevards with buildings close by that people can access. I think of further south of where Jimmy John's and Starbucks are, like if you have all that be walkable up Metro and whatnot, that could be really nice in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, Commissioner Strauss.
Yeah, I'm going to put, I have a little different take. I think the parking, it just makes, I can see there's so many reasons why you want to do it for the operational, of the building. The commission members, about this desire to have that building up closer to the street to create more of that face, that would probably be more significant or important. But, I mean, you've got Metro Boulevard and you got Highway 100. I mean, you've already lost that traditional urban face that you may be talking about creating. I mean, you already got, I don't know, what is that, 400 feet, 500 feet of open space. So it's sort of, what I like, I mean, what I think works is that view that's up there, the building lower. It's right there, the one you have showing. And then would be the north. It kind of captures that sweep on the curve. And then the building, which is to the south, well, that's not going to change for a long, long time. So I think the solution is how that green space between the roadway and the parking, how that's built out, and to me that would be the important feature. Is that I think I'm okay with the parking and the building orientated as it is, and pay a lot of attention with how we work that boulevard. I mean, that would appear to me to be the key to make that work. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bornstein, any questions, comments?
This is kind of tough, guy. I mean, it raises just interesting questions. I agree with Commissioner Miranda. Basically, it's just about why it's tough, because I think we all get exactly what you're trying to accomplish. There's like this planning set of considerations that we need to think about, and they're just it's just kind of different, especially when we're looking at this area and it's so big. It's just forgetting about your individual building, and this entire region is so large and so unfortunate right now, with just the massive like moonscape of surface parking and just poor orientation of pretty much every structure in relation to everything around it. So I don't know what way that leads me exactly on this particular proposal. If it were, I think I kind of see what you're saying, like just this one structure on its own with parking oriented this way might not be the worst thing in the world, might help your business function better. At the same time, if we started getting, as this area filled in, everything the same way, we might have a row of these things, going along Metro Boulevard with parking in front of all of them, and I don't think we'd want that. So I'm more just acknowledging like there's some tension between the long-term planning considerations that we have to think about, and I think the immediate considerations you're trying to address. And I actually don't know how I feel about it on its own. This on its own, I don't think is like extremely problematic or anything like that. It's just as this area fills in, how are we going to get the new structures to kind of work in the way we want? And if we start going down this route, which we might not have discretion to reject, what do the rest of them look like? So I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle on this. Like, for example, the Placement Partners building, it's just too bad that it's set that way, and conforming to it doesn't help us from a planning perspective. So I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I was going to ask you though, how many people access your practice park and come to your practice every day?
Every day?
Yeah, just like throughout the course of a typical day, you build this building.
Yep.
What type of volume are you expecting to get?
I see between 15 and 20 patients a day.
Okay.
My associate sees between 10 and 12.
Okay. So you'd have maybe like over 30 people. But you said you were going to hire some more.
Right. So this new building would support 2 additional endodontists.
Okay. So
double that at least.
All right. And is the idea of this lot being on the front, not only to allow people to park in front of the front and kind of enter that way, but also what percentage of your people does this solve the safety issue for?
About a third of my patients are in their 70s to 90s.
Okay.
And although some folks in their 70s and 80s are very healthy,
Yeah.
It runs the gamut. So in addition to people coming in with walkers and canes and wheelchairs, we also, like we said, when we do surgery, we have to get them to their car in a wheelchair. So I'd say at least half of that third of my patients.
Yeah.
At least 500 people a year, I would say, at our current volume.
Yeah. It's almost like because of the less than ideal conditions of the rest of the site, because it is so autocentric, and because no other property owner has constructed a building that really conforms to the principles we're looking to encourage, you almost need to try to react to that. There's less than ideal conditions on this large parcel, and it almost seems like because of all the driving around happening, let's make a safe pocket for my people. So you can kind of see how the yeah, so I don't have a particular view on it really right now. It's something I'll think more about, but thank you for your presentation. Thanks for wanting to do business in Edina. Yeah.
Any other comments? Yeah, Commissioner Padilla.
In terms of suggestions, I'm okay with this building here. Dresses up the area just a little bit. I worked at 7200 for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years or something, so I'm pretty familiar with that area. But I noticed in the documents that you submitted, I think you said you would comply with all the sustainability requirements, but it wasn't going to be a lead building or anything like that. And I would just encourage you to go above and beyond the sustainability guidelines. I think that they are not that onerous, and in a practice like yours, it is an excellent opportunity to do that, both in terms of the kind of practice that you have and the needs that you have in terms of utilities and things like that. So I think yours would be kind of the perfect building or structure that could really excel in terms of LEED certification and sustainability and things like that.
All right, thank you. Is that all? Oh, Commissioner Miranda.
One more thing. So the parking is a recommendation, but you're still requesting a variance for the height, first floor height. So, of course, we'd like both of those. But if I had to pick one, I guess my understanding with the 20-foot height, first floor height, was, again, more with a very large building, in a very large area where we could repurpose the entire building. This feels like a pretty special purpose kind of building. So I guess I'd be more willing to, in the future, if this came to us as an actual proposal, I'd probably think more about allowing the variance for the height if, in fact, the building were up against the sidewalk. So that would probably be enough of a balance for me for how I'd look at it. So, thank you.
Any other comments? Questions? Thank you all for the presentation tonight, and wish you luck when you hit the drawing board and fill in the details.
Thank you very much.
And then we're here outside of now for emails or any other exchange too, between formal application if you have questions.
Thank you, commissioners. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the feedback.
Thank you guys. Have a great night. All right, so as I mentioned, we had 2 reports and recommendations. That was the first one. The second one is the appointment of co-chairs for the new Lincoln and Londonderry small area plan. Before we get into that, Carrie, if you could maybe give us an update as to how the council meeting went regarding our work plan, because obviously this got added to it. Were certain things struck? Were other things added?
Yeah, they approved it at their last meeting. I will include a copy of the plan. It's pretty much how you had recommended, with the exception of the addition of this small area plan. One thing that they did was, we've got a bunch of ordinance suggestions on there. That's almost more of a staff is going to bring those to you, and we're going to do those. So those were taken off to, so it doesn't look like you have 8 items, but we're still going to do them.
Okay.
So
let's get it done.
Yes.
Or you get it done.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, the things that did remain, the cannabis study, that remains on there. That's going to be an ordinance, but that's going to be a bigger task and maybe a task force. I don't know, but we'll. So that one did remain.
And I guess just for other commissioners to note, per our work session together, all of the potential chairs or co-chairs of those activities didn't change. So whatever you volunteered and wanted to lead, those people are still in place for that, with this exception, the small area plan, which we did not account for. So tonight before us is kind of who do we want to appoint as co-chairs. And with that, one of the recommendations, just so everyone knows, that came from staff was it'd be wise to try to have someone as a co-chair that served on a small area plan working group prior. And with Jerry rolling off, it leaves Lou and myself, and Lou has expressed interest to serve as a co-chair, so I'd recommend considering Lou to be one of them. It's important to have someone with experience of the small area plan. And then I guess the other thing would be to welcome someone else that would be interested in joining this venture. And a little feedback to kind of fill in the gaps between our work session and this getting approved. I was at the city council's work session to propose our work plan. And some of the feedback we got, maybe on the heels of the Cahill District Plan, which is a bigger version of this, but ultimately was not approved and received by the city council. We want to perhaps recalibrate what the small area plan should be instead of mimicking exactly what we've done prior. And some of that can be, more commissioners at the inception being involved, as well as incorporating city council members, more than just one check-in, having them more involved at the onset of this, so we are getting whatever this is going to be kind of moving in the right direction. So those were kind of the only points of feedback that I'd say are relevant to this discussion. Carrie, you got anything else?
Yep, no, I think that was good.
Okay, so I just open for discussion if anyone has questions or concerns or would like to volunteer themselves or someone else.
Well, I just have a clarifying question. When we say that the city council should be involved early, they're not going to be, or are they going to be on the team to do the work, or is it just more check-ins with them?
Yeah, good question. It is not the intent to have one of them on the team. I don't think any of them would even volunteer to do so. But how we've kicked off other successful small area plans are city council comes to like open houses. They're invited to some of the informal gatherings so we can all get their perspective. But we could have just a couple more brief check-ins at the onset instead of they have a busy work plan, but if we get something in their brief to just kind of Carrie, you would know better.
Yeah, I would. They do have an extremely busy work session calendar. They do that before every meeting, but they fill up fast. Example, I think the first opening is in March. So I would go in and plug in a couple of dates for us to have a check-in with them for this project.
Does that help? And then obviously any other input people have, just on the heels of an unsuccessful district plan going forward, we have opportunity to learn and do something differently. Some of that is maybe just the nature of the Cahill district. From the beginning, there was kind of diverging points of view where I don't know if we know enough about this potential small area to know where people stand. So I think it'd benefit us all to be better informed. Yeah, Commissioner Day.
Really, I just was going to say, as far as volunteering for this position would go, so when this initial discussion came up, and we were contacted by residents of this area several months ago, I went and met with them, and they were kind enough to take me around and show me the area. So I have an interest in this area. It's close by to home. I run through there frequently, like through 9 Mile Creek Trail and stuff, and would like to see, what our potential is for developing that area. So I would volunteer to be a co-chair on this. I think it would be a good initial bit of experience, seeing as I also want to have some involvement in how the Cahill plan goes forward. This is a little bit easier, a smaller area, probably less contentious. So yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else expressing any interest or support?
No, but one question. What is the residents, what is the interest, like the driving? Is there a common driving interest behind making a small area plan for this particular area? Or is it, is it like Cahill? Are there divergent views, or is everybody in agreement about what they want to happen?
Well, so I can summarize best in terms of what I learned from the residents and the people that I had a discussion with. So I think a lot of initial traction came from the sketch plan review over the proposed housing development that was going to be placed over there on that corner. And I think that engaged people, and I don't think the response was then negative and therefore trying to undermine that plan. I think it was just made people say, wait a minute, like it started into motion, people thinking about what do we want for this area, and if we're going to start developing more aggressively, right, what does our vision look like for that? So what I heard, is to say, okay, well, in our area, there's not really a lot of stuff in terms of walkability. There's not a lot of restaurants close by or a grocery store. We're a bit of an island. How could we develop this, in a way that makes sense for all of us? I was saying that plot where the development was proposed was kind of on the small side. It would be better if it was in this area and stuff. So just really less developer driven and a little bit more resident driven in terms of how that develops in the next few years.
Okay.
I let Lou know earlier I was interested in it. And I have a couple of questions. One is, would this also kind of include the Key site? Could this?
It would not. That's
okay. I know it's too far, but at some point.
Yeah, so as a reminder, separate and parallel to this, we still will have on our work plan identifying the areas of potential change, which we kind of know that Key site is one of those. So this is somewhat cart before the horse, but in the same breath, other small area plans have been spurred by very similar developer interest, kind of like the 44th and France plan that I joined when I was new to the commission. And I do recommend, if you want to get involved and learn a lot, jumping into one of these is a great opportunity to engage with the community, kind of learn how things work. And we're not limited maybe necessarily to just 2 co-chairs. Could we have, more? Or what is the limit on? We need 9 total?
9 is what we've done. I think 7 is more ideal, but 9 has been a practice.
Yeah, I will say, just in experience as a co-chair, it's hard to get everyone's time to align, so maybe to have an extra commissioner up there, if they're willing, wouldn't be a bad thing. It kind of lessens the burden of 2 or 1 person carrying a lot if the schedule doesn't align. So when you're interested, are you interested in a co-chair role or participating or peripheral?
Co-chair.
Okay.
And I have one question. Staff had mentioned looking at some other small area plans that might be a better fit. We had a work session several months ago when we talked about maybe refining the small area plan so there wasn't a lot of reiterative stuff at the beginning of it. And staff had mentioned looking at some other small area plans that might incorporate some of those ideas.
Yeah, so maybe to tie into that and provide some context. So let's say we identify who should be co-chairs. Maybe a glimpse of the process is the city will hire a consultant that first you will assemble a small area plan working group, do interviews, look at resumes, to either get 7 or 9 people, whatever ends up being the magic number. At that same time, the city will engage different qualified candidates to serve as the consultant to develop the small area plan. So there's a lot of time that happens there, and within that time, staff can work with the co-chairs to kind of get ahead of some things. Like we mentioned, consider eliminating just all the regurgitated, repetitive things that are common to all small area plans and are now buried more in the comprehensive plan. Maybe it's kind of identifying that up front or getting an idea of what that looks like and then working with the working group to kind of hone in on that with the consultant. But the consultant will provide a lot of great feedback once they're hired.
Just another question on the expectation, and this would kick off in the beginning of 2024, and is the goal to have the small area plan put together by December, or in the past, kind of what was the timeline that folks experienced doing it?
That's a good question. Depends on size and scale. Southdale being different than Cahill being different than 44th and France. But to do it effectively, it's probably at least 9 months to a year.
Yeah, that's the goal would be to have it completed by the end of next year. Sometimes we hit our mark. Sometimes things come up where we want to have more public meetings, whatever it may be, and it's gone longer. There's no hard and fast, you have to have it done by this time, but we want to have a goal line established. It can be moved, but the goal on this one is to get it finished by the end of next year.
Yeah, if it's similar to other small area plans, it'd probably be something close to, as a small area plan working group, 6 to 8 meetings, 2 to 3 public open houses, and a couple check-ins with city council. So and kind of why we were a little cautious about adding this to the work plan is, compared to any other item on our work plan, these are the biggest undertaking and require a solid commitment. So, yeah, Jerry.
Like I said, there is a kind of a game plan, but each one is unique and go off in directions you don't anticipate. But as far as having 3 members, I could see if the process came to votes, and they might say, well, the planning commission stacked, the group with, this block. But generally the approach is consensus. You're not really, it's not decided by votes. It's, do we all agree? So that's why I don't know that 3 members. I mean, that would certainly maybe help share the load too. I mean, that would.
Yeah.
Sometimes I thought just when there were just 2 of us that, and 8, 9 meetings. Well, that's right. 13, 15, 16. It's going to be more, likely. But I because like that, my experience was, it was consensus as far as how that group deliberated. We rarely voted. We might have did a show of hands or something, but it's generally, is the group agreeing? So that was just my.
And so then, typically with the working group development, just it'd be something we can take offline once this goes. But you tend, and probably MJ will coordinate some of that, but we tend to strive for a diverse group of, business owners, nearby residents at large, and that's why we always have planning commissioners on there too, so we can just kind of build in this transparency and collaboration. So I didn't think about 3, but I think 3 could work here pretty well. And again, it's a big load and we have a lot of other things, so it'd be good to do this right and help it advance more quickly. So, and a lot of that tends to be schedule driven. So if any other thoughts or comments, questions?
Yeah, I guess my thought is if we do go with 3, then I think we'd want 9 for sure. That way we've got 6 in addition to the planning commission.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and to be honest, to add more to this, as far as there being 3, I mean, I travel a lot for work outside of weeks that I'm coming for planning commission, so I've been able to manage that well to date, but things can change, and so it's good for me to have 2 additional people, so I'm not putting it all on Commissioner Miranda. Right? I do want to get exposure to this, and I do want to be involved. So I'm glad that you also that we have additional volunteer for this. But I could definitely see instances where I don't want to leave you stranded, kind of thing. So I think 3 is a good number.
Smith.
Yeah, I'm really curious as the city council, put this in our radar to work on. Does it mean that any development or any activity that comes into this area, does that all get put on hold until this work is done, or could those items move forward in parallel with this work?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. The council did not put a moratorium on, so we could get an application. We would have to cross that.
Maybe you could share what happened at 44th and France. I mean, a similar thing where...
Very similar thing.
And the developer just waited it out.
The developer chose to wait it out, yep. Yeah, so we just started the small area plan. He came in with a sketch plan proposal to do the building that's there today.
While serving on the
Yeah, and he was
group.
appointed to so he had to, he had to be taken off of the working group, and then he waited it out.
And I know the council did say that if it makes sense to do a moratorium, they would do that just to either protect interests or whatever. But I don't, at this point, no one's knocking on the door right now, and that potential development mentioned they're a couple of years out. Right?
Yes,
maybe you would know more.
Yeah, but there's still the
always
potential.
murmurs.
They could
Yeah.
still turn around and do it. Short of a moratorium, we would advise them, this is what the council had talked about. We're going to do this small area plan. You'd be well advised to wait. But without a moratorium in place, if they make that application, we still have to process it. Given the 60-day rule, 120-day rule, it makes it difficult to approve anything by planning commission and city council when you're going through a study like that. So they do that at their own risk.
Does that help? Yeah.
Yeah, this helps a lot. So a business owner, let's just say you want to get out of a lease, or there's a new tenant that wants to come in and purchase a space. No zoning changes or anything like that, but just, if I don't have business here, I could lose a lot of money. Our business owners then would be at risk of not developing and getting any kind of commercial value while this is happening. Like, that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around a little bit.
Existing businesses, they can continue to operate. If one moves out and another moves in, if it's the same, if it's allowed under the zoning, ownership can change. With this request, the housing proposal, they need a rezoning. They needed a lot to be asked of us. But just that day-to-day change of operation, that can still take place.
And commonplace during the development of these, and that's why we try to get property and business owners as part of the group, or at least engaged. It's oftentimes, you start mapping things out and something is different over their property, and that's a typical part of the process. People are typically more used to it than you'd expect, and doesn't mean you're telling them to change it today, but again, it's like thinking long-term, what could happen there. Most business and property owners, in my experience, have been always receptive of, all right, that's cool. I'm either on board or like, well, I know that's never happening because I control my property. And but it's good to get it all hands on deck. And it's the whole point of the small area plan, really.
Right, yep.
And for that, it's important to remember that no matter how detailed your small area plan, it's just a guideline. We can't tell businesses what to build or whatever, or what kind of businesses. Well, we can say what kind of business, but, it's not prescriptive. We're not, the city isn't coming in here and buying the land and redeveloping it. So it's still up to the property owners, and we've seen this in the Cahill district where, a property owner just doesn't want change, and so nothing happens. It's nothing the city can do about it. So we're just planning for, if it does change, this is what we would like to see as a city.
Awesome. So does everyone feel good with 3 co-chairs? The ones that express interest, or are there others here that would like to throw their hat in the ring? Again, there will be plenty of opportunity to engage if you want as a planning commissioner.
So the next step then is we'll develop that green print where MJ Lehman gets involved, and that's selecting the working group. We'll get that process started.
So we should motion.
Hopefully the 3
though.
is okay.
Should we motion to?
I'll make a motion to appoint Commissioners Felt, Miranda, and Day to serve as co-chairs for the Lincoln Londonderry Small Area Plan.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Question time. Yeah.
Is Commissioner Day the lead? And
3
Miranda.
co-chairs.
So who's the lead?
Miranda's the one with experience, but we're all co-chairs.
I don't think you.
There's nothing like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I second. Oh, third.
Okay. So all in favor? Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
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 So moved.
You'll make the second so long as I wasn't the lead? Was that what?
All right. So no public hearings tonight. That concludes our reports and recommendations portion, and turn it over to chair and member comments before we hit staff comments. Anyone with anything? Yeah, Commissioner Padilla.
Thank you very much. I don't need to start over, right? The HSTF has finished their work for 2023. Pursuant to the RFP, the interviews, and much discussion, city funds will be released to Beacon Interfaith, Cornerstone, Edina Give and Go, Veep, Help at Your Door, Normandale Center, Senior Community Services, and Oasis for Youth. So, it was a very worthwhile and rewarding privilege.
Thank you. Commissioner Felt?
I don't know if everybody watched. Did you, the library presentation in front of the city council? Did you get a chance to do that for? It's a beautiful building. They got a lot more information than we did. And I'm bringing this up tonight just so I can get this off my chest and not leave it for 6 months. What we were presented with was a very light site plan. And it was a bit of disservice, I think, to us, which is unfortunate. I don't know. I'm sure, right, they're a very difficult situation. But they did show the city council a beautiful plan. So I'm thrilled that it's there, and I'm glad we're moving ahead with it.
Yes, I would agree. If I could just add, what you said, everything is correct. Staff did try to prod them to provide a little more information for us to review. I think it was partially the Planning Commission review that got them to advance the plans a little more. They said a lot of the things that they showed, but they just didn't show us the pictures. They were saying they're going to do all these things, and then they put pen to paper, and they were very nice plans.
It just, and I appreciate that, and I know that they were going to do a good job. It just puts us in a really tough spot when it happens. It did just happen, but it puts us in a tough spot.
Correct, indeed. Any other comments? Chair member comments? All right, well, I'll just say one. Having served as a co-chair of a small area plan, I really want to thank you three for stepping up to do it. It definitely has, in my opinion, the most giving, rewarding, and fulfilling experience serving as the planning commissioner, to be a co-chair of one of those and really engage with the community. And it's a huge effort, so I know what you guys are undertaking, and I appreciate it a lot, and I'm sure everyone else does too. Yeah, Commissioner Day.
I guess the last thing for me would be, I hope everybody has a happy holidays for the next few weeks. Get a break, to relax a little bit, and then back to work after the first of the year.
That's great, yeah. Carrie.
Yeah, just an update on the last council meeting. In addition to the library sketch plan, they held the public hearing for the green drop proposal. They'll take action next Tuesday. That's it.
Well, that being it, there's only one item left.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. So moved. The meeting is concluded. Thank you, everyone.
And there was a,